Admiral Zethkar stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching as transport ships filled the space around the Zarian Prime. Each vessel carried warriors from the deadliest worlds in the galaxy. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were Deathworlders. The Catharan warriors came first. Their skin looked like living rock scarred by the volcanic hell they called home. They had fought battles in lakes of molten lava and won. Their weapons could melt through starship hulls in seconds. Behind them marched the Vexhai, tall beings made of living crystal. Their bodies could survive crushing gravity that would flatten most creatures into paste. When they moved, they sounded like breaking glass, but their armor had never been pierced by any weapon known to the galaxy. From the toxic oceans of Morv came the amphibious Morvac. Their gills could filter poison from water, and their claws could tear through metal like paper. They had conquered every sea on their home world, turning it into a fortress that had never fallen to any enemy. 7 other species joined them, each one a master of death from worlds that would kill normal beings just by breathing the air. Zethkar smiled as he counted the ships. 10,000 of the galaxy's most feared warriors, all gathered for one simple mission. They were going to teach a lesson to a small blue planet called Earth. The briefing room buzzed with different languages as the various species talked among themselves. Zethkar activated the translation system and stepped to the front of the room. The conversation stopped. Even Deathworlders respected his reputation. "Warriors of the Confederation," he began, his voice carrying across the room. "You have been called here because of a problem. A small problem on a small world, but one that threatens everything we have built." He activated the holographic display. A blue and green planet appeared in the center of the room, slowly rotating. It looked peaceful, almost boring. "This is Earth," Zethkar continued, "home to a species called humans. For the past 50 years, the Confederation has offered them membership in our great alliance. We have offered them technology, protection, and guidance. They have refused every offer." A low growl came from the Catharan section. Their leader, General Vaktor, stood up. His voice sounded like grinding stone. "Let us burn their cities. Problem solved." Zethkar held up a hand. "Patience, General. The problem is not just their refusal. Word of their defiance has spread. Other primitive worlds now think they can reject the Confederation's generous offers. Some have even stopped paying their protection fees. This cannot continue." The hologram changed, showing images of human cities, their primitive vehicles, and their laughably simple weapons. The assembled warriors looked at the display with growing amusement. "Look at them," Zethkar said with disgust. "They live on a single climate world. No volcanic fields to strengthen them, no crushing gravity to build their bones, no toxic atmosphere to toughen their lungs. They are soft creatures who die if the temperature drops too much or rises too high. They eat only a few types of food and need clean water to survive. Their weapons throw small pieces of metal using chemical explosions." Laughter rippled through the room. Commander Sixra of the Vexhai made a sound like breaking crystal that passed for laughter among her people. "My personal shield can stop their strongest weapons. Why do we need 10,000 warriors for this?" Zethkar nodded. "An excellent question, Commander. We bring overwhelming force because this is not just about conquest. This is about sending a message to every world in the galaxy. When the Confederation offers guidance, you accept it. When you refuse, this is what happens." He changed the display again, showing the invasion fleet. Hundreds of ships equipped with weapons that could crack planets, orbital bombardment platforms that could turn continents into glass, troop transports designed to carry armies across space. "The plan is simple," Zethkar explained. "We will arrive in their system and demand surrender. When they refuse, as they surely will, we will demonstrate our power. A few orbital strikes on empty areas to show what we can do. Then we will land and occupy their major population centers. Minimal casualties, maximum effect." General Vaktor raised his hand. "What about their military?" "According to our intelligence, they have no unified planetary defense. Their largest military forces use vehicles that roll on the ground and aircraft that cannot even reach orbit. Their most advanced weapons are guided missiles with conventional explosives. Against our shields and armor, They might as well be throwing rocks. The room erupted in laughter again. War leader Threx of the Morvac slapped his webbed hand on the table. This will be easier than hunting fish in a barrel. My troops are trained for underwater combat and acid storms. Fighting these soft land dwellers will be like a vacation. Zethkar smiled, pleased with their confidence. Exactly. You will find this mission refreshing after the challenges of your homeworlds. The humans breathe the same air we do. Drink water. That won't dissolve your equipment and fight with weapons that cannot penetrate our basic armor. Many of you have asked for easier assignments. Consider this a reward for your service. The briefing continued with tactical discussions and equipment assignments. Each species would handle different aspects of the invasion. The Catharan would take the mountain regions using their heat resistance to operate in any climate. The Vexhai would handle urban areas, their armor making them perfect for city fighting. The Morvac would secure coastal regions and islands. As the meeting ended, the warriors filed out with casual confidence. They joked about how quickly the mission would end and what they would do with their free time afterward. Some made bets about whether the humans would surrender before or after the first orbital bombardment. Zethkar remained in the briefing room, studying the tactical displays. Everything looked perfect. Intelligence reports showed a divided planet with multiple governments that could barely cooperate. Their space capabilities were minimal. Their weapons were primitive. Their biology was fragile. It would be a simple mission: land, demonstrate superior firepower, accept surrender, establish Confederation rule. The humans would learn to be grateful for the guidance they were about to receive. Other worlds would see what happened to those who refused the Confederation's generous offers. The fleet would depart tomorrow. Within a week, they would reach Earth. Within another week, the mission would be complete, and Zethkar would return home as the Admiral, who finally brought the stubborn humans into the galactic community. He turned off the displays and walked to his quarters. Tomorrow would begin the shortest military campaign in Confederation history. After all, what could 10 billion primitive humans possibly do against 10,000 of the galaxy's deadliest warriors? The flagship hummed around him as preparations continued. Loading weapons, checking equipment, reviewing battle plans. Everything was ready for what would surely be the most one-sided battle ever fought. Zethkar fell asleep that night, confident in his superiority, completely unaware that his intelligence about Earth was not just wrong, but catastrophically, dangerously, fatally incomplete. The Confederation fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Zethkar stood on his bridge, expecting to see empty space and a few primitive satellites around the third planet. Instead, his sensors immediately began screaming warnings. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm reading massive defensive installations throughout the system, asteroid bases, orbital platforms, and, sir, there are ships moving to intercept us." Zethkar frowned and walked to the main display. What he saw made no sense. The space around Earth looked like a fortress. Huge metal structures floated between planets, bristling with weapons that his computers couldn't identify. Ships that were definitely not in the intelligence reports moved in perfect formation toward his fleet. "How many ships?" he asked. "Counting. Now, sir, at least 300, possibly more. They're using some kind of stealth technology. New contacts keep appearing on sensors." This was wrong. The intelligence reports said humans had barely reached their own moon. They were supposed to have a few simple space stations and maybe some mining operations on asteroids. This looked like the defensive grid of a major Confederation world. "Open communication channels," Zethkar ordered. "All frequencies." The communication officer worked for several minutes, then shook his head. "Sir, they're not responding to any of our standard diplomatic frequencies. They're not even acknowledging our presence." "Then we follow protocol," Zethkar decided. "Broadcast the standard surrender demand." The message went out in 12 galactic languages, demanding immediate surrender and offering protection under Confederation law. The response came 30 seconds later, but not through communication channels. The human ships opened fire. Zethkar watched in shock as weapons fire unlike anything he had ever seen lanced through space toward his fleet. The energy beams weren't the standard plasma bolts used by civilized species. They seemed to twist through space, bending around his ship's defensive fields like water flowing around rocks. "Shields holding," his tactical officer reported. "But, sir, these weapons are strange. They're not behaving according to known physics. The first Confederation ship died when something that looked like a simple missile somehow passed completely through its shields and exploded inside the engine room. The massive Kithran cruiser simply broke apart, its volcanic-resistant hull cracking like an egg." "How did that missile get through our shields?" Zethkar demanded. "I don't know, sir. It just ignored them, like they weren't there." More human weapons struck the fleet. A beam of pure white light hit a Vex-High battleship and somehow turned the crystalline being's own armor against them. The crystal warriors began screaming as their protective shells became prisons, conducting energy through their bodies. "All ships return fire," Zethkar ordered. "Show these primitives what real weapons can do." The Confederation fleet unleashed its full power. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids, particle beams that could cut through planetary crust, and fusion warheads that could crack moons. The devastating barrage should have destroyed every human ship in seconds. Instead, the human vessels did something impossible. They scattered like a school of fish, moving in ways that violated every law of space combat. Some ships seemed to fold space around themselves, appearing behind Confederation vessels that had been targeting them. Others simply vanished from sensors entirely, only to reappear somewhere else. "Sir," the tactical officer said, his voice barely controlled, "our weapons are having minimal effect. The human ships are using unknown defensive technologies, some kind of adaptive shielding that learns from each hit." General Vaktor's voice crackled over the communication system from his troop transport. "Admiral, request permission to begin landing operations. My warriors are eager to face these humans on solid ground where their tricks won't help them." Zethkar nodded grimly. "Permission granted. All ground forces, begin immediate planetary assault. Show them what Deathworlders can do." The first landing, ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, expecting to face primitive aircraft and simple ground defenses. Instead, they found themselves flying through a maze of weapons fire that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Human aircraft that shouldn't exist performed maneuvers that should have killed their pilots, while ground-based weapons tracked the landing ships with impossible accuracy. A Morvac assault ship, designed to land in the crushing depths of alien oceans, was somehow brought down by what appeared to be a modified weather control system. Lightning struck it repeatedly until its systems failed and it crashed into the Pacific Ocean. General Vaktor's transport made it to the surface, landing in what the map showed as a simple grassland. His warriors poured out, ready to face whatever primitive defenders the humans could muster. They found themselves in the middle of a carefully prepared killing field. The grass wasn't just grass. Hidden beneath the green surface were weapons that rose from the ground like metal flowers. The soil itself seemed to explode upward, revealing human soldiers who had somehow been hiding underground in positions that should have been impossible to dig. "Contact!" Vaktor roared as his warriors found themselves under fire from weapons that cut through their heat-resistant armor like it was paper. These aren't the primitive projectile weapons from the intelligence reports. The human weapons were beyond anything in Confederation databases. Some fired beams of coherent sound that liquefied internal organs. Others launched projectiles that seemed to phase in and out of reality, appearing inside Kitharan warriors despite their armor being intact. But the most terrifying discovery came when Vaktor's communication officer intercepted human radio chatter. The humans weren't panicking. They weren't screaming or running in fear. Instead, they were talking in calm, professional voices about Target Package Alpha and Defense Grid 7 responding and implementing Countermeasure Protocol 4. They sounded like they had been expecting this attack, like they had prepared for it. Commander Sixra's voice came through the communication system from her position in what should have been a simple human city. "Admiral, something is very wrong here. The humans have weapons we've never seen before. My crystal warriors are being cut down by blades that shouldn't exist. The humans have somehow weaponized molecular bonds themselves." Reports flooded in from every landing site. HFY warriors found their unbreakable armor turned to powder by sonic weapons. Morvac amphibious forces discovered that humans had somehow turned entire lakes into acid traps. Desert assault teams vanished in sandstorms that moved against the wind. The most disturbing report came from a Kythran squad that had landed near what intelligence said was a simple human military base. Instead of primitive bunkers, they found underground complexes that stretched for kilometers in every direction. The humans weren't just defending their planet, they had turned it into a weapon. "Sir?" His sensor officer called out, his voice tight with fear. "I'm picking up massive energy readings from the planet's surface. It looks like the humans are charging some kind of planetary defense grid." Zethkar stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Every red dot represented a Confederation unit in trouble. Every blue dot showed human forces that weren't supposed to exist. The primitive planet was fighting back with technology that made his fleet look ancient. "Get me a direct line to General Vaktor," he ordered. When the connection came through, the sound of battle was clearly audible in the background. "Admiral," Vaktor's voice was strained. "We need immediate orbital support. These humans are not what we expected. They're fighting like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it." "How is that possible?" "I don't know, sir. But they've turned this entire planet into a fortress. Every tree could be hiding a weapon. Every rock could be a bunker. They're not just defending their world, they've made their world part of their army." Zethkar closed his eyes. This was supposed to be a simple demonstration of power. Instead, he was watching the greatest military force in the galaxy get systematically destroyed by creatures that were supposed to die from minor temperature changes. Something was very, very wrong with their intelligence about Earth. 3 days had passed since the invasion began, and Admiral Zethkar could no longer pretend this was going according to plan. His command center buzzed with constant reports of failure and confusion. What should have been a quick demonstration of power had become a nightmare that grew worse with each passing hour. "Status report," he demanded from his tactical officer. "Sir, we've lost contact with 30% of our ground forces. The Kythran mountain units have completely vanished. General Vaktor's last transmission was from somewhere called the Rocky Mountains, but that was 18 hours ago." Zethkar pulled up the tactical display showing Earth's surface. Red markers indicated where his forces had landed. Most of those markers were now flashing yellow or had disappeared entirely. The few remaining green markers showed units that were barely holding their positions. "What about the HFY urban assault teams?" "Commander Sixra reports heavy casualties, sir. The humans somehow turned the cities into mazes. Streets that existed yesterday are gone today. Buildings that show up on our maps aren't where they're supposed to be. Her warriors are getting lost in areas that should be simple to navigate." This made no sense. Cities didn't change overnight. Streets didn't move by themselves. Yet the reports kept coming in about HFY crystal warriors, masters of siege warfare, getting trapped in urban environments that seemed to shift around them like living things. "And the Morvac oceanic forces?" The tactical officer hesitated. "War leader Threx requests immediate evacuation, sir. He says the oceans are not what they appear to be. His amphibious warriors are being hunted by something the humans call submarines, underwater vehicles that move faster than our ships and carry weapons that turn water itself into explosives." Zethkar slammed his fist on the console. The Morvac were terror of the seas on 100 worlds. They had conquered oceans filled with acid and monsters that could eat starships. How were they being defeated by humans in simple water? "Sir," his communication officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's coming from inside our own perimeter." "Impossible. Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed a human face. It was a woman with short dark hair and scars across her left cheek. She wore simple clothing that looked like it had been made for fighting. Behind her, Zethkar could see what looked like the interior of a Confederation ship. "Admiral Zethkar," the woman said in perfect galactic standard. "My name is Commander Torres. I'm currently aboard your supply ship Nexus 7 with my team. We need to talk." "How did you get aboard my ship?" Zethkar demanded. "That vessel is in space, protected by shields and weapons." Commander Torres smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "Your shields work very well against energy weapons and missiles, Admiral. They don't work against people who know how to slip between the molecules. We've been studying your technology for quite some time. Studying our technology? You're a primitive species that barely reached your own moon. Is that what your intelligence reports told you? Torres laughed, and the sound made Zethkar's skin crawl. Admiral, let me share something with you. We've known about the Galactic Confederation for over a century. We've been watching you, learning about you, preparing for the day when someone like you would come here thinking we were easy prey. She gestured to someone off-screen, and the view changed to show the cargo bay of the supply ship. Zethkar's blood turned cold. Dozens of his crew members sat calmly on the floor, their weapons taken away, their hands secured with what looked like simple plastic strips. They weren't injured, but they looked terrified. Your crew is safe, Torres continued. We haven't hurt them because we're not monsters, but we could have killed every person on this ship without anyone knowing we were here. Instead, we came to deliver a message. What message? Leave. Now. Take your fleet and go back to whatever hole you crawled out of and never come back. This is your only warning. Zethkar felt anger surge through him. A primitive human was threatening him. You think you can intimidate the Confederation? We have weapons that can crack your planet like an egg. We can turn your cities to glass from orbit. Can you? Torres asked. Go ahead and try. What? I said go ahead and try. Order your ships to fire on our planet. See what happens. Zethkar stared at her in confusion. You're asking me to destroy you? I'm asking you to try. Your weapons are impressive, Admiral. Plasma cannons that can melt asteroids, particle beams that cut through rock like butter, fusion warheads that can crack moons. Very nice technology. Unfortunately for you, we've had a long time to prepare countermeasures. She nodded to someone off-screen again, and suddenly, Zethkar's tactical display lit up with new information. Energy readings from Earth's surface spiked into ranges that shouldn't be possible for a planetary civilization. What you're seeing, Torres explained, is our planetary defense grid coming online. Every mountain range, every ocean, every major city is now connected to a network that can absorb and redirect energy on a scale that your ships can't match. Go ahead, Admiral. Fire everything you have at us. We'll send it right back. Zethkar's hands shook as he studied the readings. The energy signatures were beyond anything in Confederation databases. This is impossible. No single planet could generate this much power. You're right, Torres agreed. No normal planet could. But Earth isn't a normal planet, Admiral. Earth is what happens when an entire species decides to turn their world into a weapon. Every geothermal plant taps directly into our planet's core. Every wind farm connects to atmospheric processors that can control weather patterns. Every solar collector feeds into a grid that spans continents. The implications hit Zethkar like a physical blow. You've weaponized your entire planet. We've done more than that. We've made our planet part of us, and ourselves part of it. Your intelligence reports were wrong about everything, Admiral. We're not a primitive species barely surviving on a single world. We're a civilization that has spent centuries preparing for exactly this moment. Why? Zethkar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Why would you prepare for war with species you've never met? Torres's expression softened slightly, but her eyes remained hard as steel. Because we've met species like you before, Admiral. Not you specifically, but your type. Bullies who think superior technology gives them the right to rule others. Conquerors who believe might makes right. We've learned from history that the only way to deal with bullies is to be ready to hit back, harder than they can hit you. The Confederation offers guidance and protection. We're not conquerors. Really? Then why are you here pointing weapons at my planet? Why did you demand our surrender before we even said hello? Why are your warriors trying to kill my people? Torres leaned forward and her voice became deadly quiet. You came here to force us to join your empire, Admiral. You came here expecting easy prey. Instead, you found predators. The word hit Zethkar like ice water. Predators. That's what this felt like. Not a battle against primitives, but being hunted by something that had been watching him from the shadows, studying his every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Here's what's going to happen, Torres continued. You're going to recall every one of your forces from our planet. You're going to leave our system and never come back. And you're going to tell your Confederation that Earth is not interested in joining their club. Ever. And if I refuse? Commander Torres smiled again. And this time Zethkar could see why his warriors were so terrified of these humans. Then you'll learn why we named our planet after dirt, Admiral. Because dirt is where dead things end up buried. The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. But for the first time in his military career, Admiral Zethkar didn't know what to do. He had brought the deadliest warriors in the galaxy to conquer primitives, only to discover that the humans had been ready for them all along. The hunters had become the hunted, and Earth was about to teach the Confederation a lesson they would never forget. Admiral Zethkar's response to Commander Torres' ultimatum was swift and predictable. His pride would not allow him to retreat from a planet of primitives, no matter what tricks they had shown him. If the humans wanted to play games with technology, he would show them what real power looked like. All ships, he commanded, prepare for orbital bombardment. Target their major population centers. Maximum firepower. His tactical officer hesitated. Sir, the energy readings from the planet suggest they have some kind of defensive system. No planetary defense can stop the combined firepower of this fleet, Zethkar declared. Ready all weapons. We'll crack this world like an egg and show the galaxy what happens when you refuse the Confederation's generous offers. The fleet's weapons charged with the power to shatter moons. Plasma cannons that could melt continents, particle beams that could slice through planetary crust, and fusion warheads designed to break worlds. The combined firepower of 10,000 Deathworlders' support fleet was about to rain down on Earth. All weapons ready, sir. Fire. The space around Earth lit up as enough destructive energy to destroy a small moon lanced downward toward the blue planet. Zethkar watched the display with satisfaction, waiting to see cities turn to glass and continents crack under the assault. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams hit Earth's atmosphere and simply vanished. Not reflected, not absorbed, but redirected in ways that violated every law of physics Zethkar knew. The massive bombardment was being channeled somewhere else, drawn away from its targets like water flowing downhill. Weapons impact negative? His tactical officer reported, confusion clear in his voice. Sir, our bombardment is having no effect. The energy is being redirected through some kind of planetary field. That's impossible. No single world has that kind of power. His sensor operator turned pale. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy discharges from the planet's magnetic field. It's like the entire planet has become a deflector shield. On the main screen, Zethkar could see the truth. Earth wasn't just absorbing their weapons fire, it was storing it. The planet's magnetic field glowed with captured energy, building towards something that made his blood freeze. Sir, his communication officer called out. Transmission coming from the surface, it's that human woman again. Commander Torres appeared on the screen, but this time she wasn't aboard one of his ships. She stood in what looked like a control room filled with displays and instruments that hurt to look at. Behind her, Zethkar could see other humans working at stations that seemed to bend space around them. Thank you for the energy donation, Admiral, Torres said calmly. We've been running low on power for our next demonstration. Your bombardment just filled our reserves nicely. What are you talking about? You fired the equivalent of a small star's output at our planet, Admiral. Where did you think all that energy went? We've been collecting it, storing it, and now we're going to send it back to you with interest. Zethkar's displays suddenly exploded with warnings. Energy readings from Earth spiked beyond anything his instruments could measure. The planet itself was beginning to glow, not with the light of destruction, but with controlled power that dwarfed his entire fleet. This is your last chance, Admiral, Torres continued. Leave now, while you still can, because in about 60 seconds, we're going to show you what a real planetary defense system looks like. You're bluffing. No primitive world could control that much energy. Torres smiled, and Zethkar finally understood why his warriors had been so afraid. Admiral, let me share something with you about human history. We've been fighting wars on This planet for thousands of years. Wars against nature, wars against each other, wars against forces that would have destroyed any other species. We learned early that the key to survival isn't just being strong, it's being smarter than whatever wants to kill you. She gestured to the displays around her. What you see here isn't primitive technology, Admiral. This is the result of centuries of preparation for exactly this moment. We knew someday someone like you would come here thinking we were easy prey. So we prepared. Prepared how? We turned our entire planet into a weapon, Admiral. Every geothermal tap doesn't just generate power. It connects directly to our planet's molten core. Every wind farm doesn't just collect energy. It links to atmospheric processors that can control weather on a global scale. Every solar collector feeds into a network that can focus the power of our sun itself. The energy readings on Zethkar's displays climbed higher. Whatever the humans were preparing, it was beyond anything in Confederation records. But that's not the really scary part, Torres continued. The scary part is that we're not one species, Admiral. We're an ecosystem. Every human body contains billions of microscopic allies. Our minds link directly to our technology. Our genetic code rewrites itself based on what we need to survive. That's impossible. Is it? Your own reports show that we've been adapting to your weapons in real time. Every tactic you've tried, we've countered within hours. Every weapon you've fired, we've learned to defend against. We're not just fighting you, Admiral. We're evolving to fight you. Zethkar's science officer suddenly spoke up, his voice shaking. Admiral, I've been analyzing the human DNA samples we collected from the battle sites. The genetic structure it's changing. Their cellular makeup is literally rewriting itself to counter our weapons. Evolution doesn't work that fast. It does when an entire species decides to take control of their own evolution, Torres explained. We don't just adapt to our environment, Admiral. We remake our environment to suit us. And when something threatens us, we remake ourselves to fight it. The energy buildup around Earth reached critical levels. Zethkar could see his fleet's shields beginning to overload just from the proximity to so much controlled power. 30 seconds, Admiral, Torres announced. Last chance to leave peacefully. You're insane. You'll destroy your own planet with that much energy. Will we? Admiral, this is Earth. This is our home. We've spent millions of years learning every secret this world has to offer. We know exactly how much power it can handle. Exactly how to control forces that would tear apart any other world. 15 seconds. Zethkar stared at his displays in growing horror. The energy readings were beyond comprehension. The humans weren't just threatening to fight back. They were preparing to unleash the power of an entire planet against his fleet. 10 seconds. Admiral, I really do recommend you leave now. All ships, Zethkar whispered. Emergency retreat. Maximum speed. 5 seconds. Good choice, Admiral. The Confederation fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives just as Earth released its stored energy. The blast that followed lit up the entire solar system. A controlled release of power that could have destroyed continents, but instead simply pushed the alien fleet away from the planet like leaves in a hurricane. As his battered ships limped toward the edge of the system, Zethkar received one final transmission from Commander Torres. Give my regards to your Confederation, Admiral. Tell them that Earth sends its compliments and looks forward to future peaceful contact when they're ready to treat us as equals instead of subjects. Until then, consider this system under quarantine. Zethkar slumped in his command chair, watching Earth shrink in his displays. He had brought the deadliest military force in the galaxy to conquer primitives, only to discover that humanity had been waiting for them with weapons that defied imagination and capabilities that rewrote the laws of biology itself. The humans hadn't just defeated his invasion. They had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous than anyone in the Confederation had imagined. And now they knew the galaxy was watching. The real question wasn't whether humanity would join the galactic community. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had become. Admiral Zethkar sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed his once mighty fleet limping toward the edge of the Sol system. Of the original 300 ships that had arrived with such confidence, barely 60 remained functional. The rest were either destroyed, crippled, or still trapped somewhere on the surface of Earth, with crews that would probably never be seen again. The bridge was quiet, except for the steady beeping of repair systems and the occasional report from damage control teams. His crew moved with the careful precision of people who had just witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. "Admiral," his communication officer called out quietly, "we're receiving another transmission from the planet." Zethkar closed his eyes. He expected to see Commander Torres again, perhaps to gloat over their victory or demand some kind of tribute. Instead, when the main screen activated, he found himself looking at an elderly human man with gray hair and kind eyes. The man wore simple clothes and sat in what looked like a library, surrounded by books and displays showing images of stars and planets. "Admiral Zethkar," the man said in perfect galactic standard. "My name is Professor Chen. I teach xenobiology at the University of New Geneva. I was hoping we could have a conversation before you leave our system." "What do you want?" Zethkar asked, too tired to hide his defeat. "I want to explain something that I think you deserve to understand," Professor Chen replied. "Your intelligence about humanity was not just wrong, Admiral, it was designed to be wrong." "What do you mean?" Professor Chen leaned forward slightly, his expression serious but not unkind. "We've known about the Galactic Confederation for 143 years, Admiral. Our first contact with your civilization came when one of your scout ships detected our early radio transmissions. We've been watching you ever since." "That's impossible. Our scouts reported a primitive civilization, because that's what we wanted them to report," the professor explained patiently. "We studied your scouting methods, learned how your reconnaissance works, and made sure your people saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Simple radio broadcasts, primitive satellites, basic chemical rockets, all carefully staged for your benefit." Zethkar felt something cold settling in his stomach. "You've been lying to us for over a century?" "Not lying, Admiral, preparing. You see, we studied the Confederation's history very carefully. We learned about the hundreds of worlds you've guided into your empire. We saw the pattern of how you operate. First contact, offers of membership, rejection, demonstration of force, and finally conquest. We decided we didn't want to be another entry in your colonial database." The professor touched something on his desk, and the display behind him changed to show images that made Zethkar's blood freeze. Massive space stations hidden in asteroid fields, ships that dwarfed anything in the Confederation fleet, weapons that looked like they could crack planets just by looking at them wrong. "So we prepared," Professor Chen continued, "not just for war, Admiral, but for the specific kind of war that the Confederation fights. We studied every military action you've taken in the past 500 years. We analyzed your tactics, your weapons, your psychology. We learned everything there was to know about how you conquer worlds." "Why?" Zethkar whispered. "Because we're not your enemies, Admiral. We're your children." "What?" Professor Chen smiled sadly. "Humanity didn't evolve on Earth, Admiral. Earth is our adopted home, our training ground, our final examination before we were ready to meet the galaxy. Our true origins lie much further out in the void, on worlds that no longer exist." The display changed again, showing star charts that Zethkar recognized but had never seen configured this way. Ancient trade routes, dead civilizations, the scattered remains of empires that had fallen long before the Confederation existed. "We are the descendants of refugees, Admiral. Survivors of wars that burned out entire sectors of space. Our ancestors fled to Earth millions of years ago, wounded and broken, carrying the genetic memory of civilizations that had been destroyed by forces not unlike the Confederation." "That's impossible," Zethkar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" "Your own science officers just reported that human genetics don't follow normal evolutionary patterns. That's because we carry the accumulated knowledge of 100 dead civilizations in our very cells. Every time our species faces a threat, we remember how our ancestors survived similar challenges." Professor Chen stood up and walked closer to the camera. "Earth isn't our homeworld, Admiral. It's our nursery. For millions of years, we've been growing here, learning here, preparing for the day when we would be ready to face the galaxy again. Your invasion was our graduation test. You used us, Zethkar realized. We learned from you, the professor corrected gently. Every weapon you fired, every tactic you tried, every biological advantage your warriors possessed, we cataloged it all. Your attack provided us with invaluable data about current galactic military capabilities. For this, we are genuinely grateful. The display behind Professor Chen changed one final time, and Zethkar saw something that made him understand the true scope of his failure. The images showed space beyond Earth's solar system, revealing structures that had been invisible to his sensors. Hundreds of ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the Confederation fleet. Orbital platforms that looked like they could build entire fleets. Installations that seemed to bend space and time around themselves. What you attacked was not our civilization, Admiral, Professor Chen explained. What you attacked was our training facility, our real infrastructure, our true military forces, our actual population centers. They're spread across half the galaxy, hidden in places your people will never find. How many of you are there? Enough, the professor replied, simply. We've been seeding the galaxy for centuries, Admiral. Establishing colonies, building installations, preparing for the day when we would reveal ourselves. That day is coming soon. Why are you telling me this? Professor Chen's expression became serious again. Because we want the Confederation to understand something very important. We are not your enemies. We don't want to conquer your worlds or destroy your civilization. We simply want to be left alone to grow and develop in peace. And if we don't leave you alone, then you'll discover that the force you just fought was less than 1% of our actual military capability, the professor said quietly. What happened here was not a battle, Admiral. It was a lesson. We hope the Confederation learns from it. The transmission began to fade, but Professor Chen's voice remained clear. Return to your people, Admiral. Tell them that humanity extends an invitation to peaceful contact when they are ready to treat us as equals, rather than subjects. Until then, we suggest they focus on governing the worlds they already have, rather than seeking new ones to conquer. And, if they don't listen? Professor Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then they'll learn why our ancestors survived when so many other civilizations did not. Goodbye, Admiral. We hope we don't meet again under these circumstances. The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar alone with the devastating truth. He had not just lost a battle against primitives. He had awakened something that had been patiently waiting for the galaxy to prove it was ready for first contact. The humans had been testing the Confederation, and they had found it wanting. As his battered fleet crossed the edge of the solar system, Zethkar began composing his report to the Confederation Council. He would tell them about the weapons that defied physics, the planet that fought like a living thing, and the creatures that had turned evolution itself into a weapon. But he would also tell them about Professor Chen's warning. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered. They were the heirs to civilizations that had mastered war when the Confederation was still learning to count. The galaxy was about to change, and Admiral Zethkar wasn't sure anyone was ready for what was coming.